Morning, Jules. We'll miss you guys at dinner tonight.
Hi, Charles. I stepped away from the phone for a minute. Couldn't get back to you. Hope you enjoy your dinner. Every nice warm weather there. This morning it's 17 degrees here.
Well, Charles stepped away to go get the coffee, so you've got his wife sitting here. And I
Oh,
have no
good.
idea what the weather is outside, but I'm going to make hot muffins this morning.
I'm sure it's better than 17 degrees.
Actually, 17 would be nice. We got a lot of ants and bugs that need to have at
They'll
least
all come
well.
inside. If it gets real
Yeah,
cold, they'll all come inside.
yeah. Well, we know how to take care of them when they come inside.
Okay.
All right.
Be well.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
When are you coming back?
We're coming back tomorrow evening. How are things by you? We're okay here.
Look at you. Green in the background. Amazing.
It's 15 degrees here. Hope it's warmer by you.
Warmer? Warmer? I don't know if it's warmer. But we make up in quality what we're lacking in heat. Okay. So 7B, smack in the middle. Is that my car? What? Your car? 1 second. Hold on. Look over here. He's coming over here. Good. Okay. 7B. Okay, so we're talking about learning from if you have less than the requisite amount, is that good? We want to learn from the special waters you mix together with the ashes for the red heifer. So we said if that's a halacha Moshe Sinai, so then you can't learn from there. But maybe we can learn from the verses. What are the verses? It says there, v'tavel, the word v'tavel, to dip your finger in the water. And dipping is implying that there's a requisite amount that's there. So now, so even by blood, if you don't have enough blood in the vessel when you're putting your finger in there, so then it's not going to be good. So Amarava, Tanya Nami Hafia, Brisa will support this. Vitaval V'lemasvik. I think we had this a long time ago. So Vitaval V'lemasvik, you have to dip your finger in, and you can't take out blood from like the side of the vessel. Bedam, Shiye Bedam, Shir Tvila, Mi Kara. That you have to have the amount for all your sprinklings originally in the vessel. And also one more, Min Hadam She Be'inyan. We'll see what that means. From the blood of the matter. We'll see it's going to come to exclude the leftovers. Let's see. Now, why do you have to have both of these expositions? It's Bedam. If it only said v'tavel, you would have thought as long as you can dip your finger in, but you don't have to have enough for all 7 sprinklings. So kasser achwana bedam. That's why it said the word bedam. The ikas achwana bedam. If it just said with blood, so you would know that you need the amount. However, havamina filu miskod. You would think you could even take some blood off the side of the vessel to wipe off scoop up with your finger from the side of the vessel. It has to be, you have to dip it into the blood, not on the side of the vessel. Min hadam shebeni lamute mai. What is min hadam laminian coming to exclude? The leftover from your finger, any remnant blood, that blood is excluded. And that is a support. If Eliezer is of the opinion that the leftover blood on your finger from the sprinklings is going to be invalid. Okay, so now on this idea that the leftover blood on your finger, so you dip your finger in, you sprinkle, and then you have leftover blood on your finger. Can you use some of that leftover to sprinkle again? The answer is no. You got to do a new dipping. So Ravina Barada said to Rava, Amram, that your student said in the name of Rav Amram, you were sprinkling, and what happened? Some of that went on miyado. It went from your hand. Im achlo hiza ta'un kibus, misha hiza ain't ta'un kibus. So now, some of the blood, before you completed your sprinklings, went onto your clothing. And we know that if it's valid blood, it's going to require laundering. If it's not valid blood, it will not require laundering. Gomer has also. Are we not talking about at any point before you finished your sprinkling, it got onto your clothing, including even a case where you had leftover blood from your finger that went onto your clothing, and that needs laundering. So don't you see, Shema Mina, the shirayim sheba etzba ksherim, that leftover blood from your finger, you see, is valid, because if it was invalid, then it couldn't cause an invalidation on your clothing. The fact that it causes a requirement for laundering must be that it is valid. Says the Gemara, look, achlo yatzta miyado haza taon kibus, umishi yatzta haza miyado benitza mimashe nishar ein taon kibus. So what it means is, before you started the sprinklings, somehow you got blood on your shirt. That needs laundering. Well, once the blood left your finger, the leftover blood from that's not going to require laundering. You don't have a proof. Okay. That is that. Now, Abaye has a question, an attack. Gamar milahazos, you finished with the red heifer. You go and you wipe your hands on the body of the bull, on the bull itself. So gamar in lo, gamar lo. Only when you finish the process, then you could do that. But lo gamar lo. But until you finished it, so you cannot wipe your finger on the bull. Okay. So now, Amrlay, Gamar Mikaneach Yado. If you finished with the process, so then you could wipe your hand. But Lo Gamar Mikaneach Etzbo. If you didn't finish it, you can still wipe off some of the water, water mixed with ashes. You can wipe it off on the bull itself. Sorry, on the cow, not the bull. So what do you see? I understand if you finish the whole process, you can wipe your hand on the red heifer. The surface of you're going to burn the whole thing in front of you. So that's okay to wipe it off on the cow itself. That there's no problem. So, however, Ella lo gamar mekanech etzbo. So b'may mekanech. If you have not finished yet and you can wipe off with your finger, so with what exactly are you wiping off? How did I read it? Wasn't what I'm saying.
They don't translate. What's in the room of the book?
That's the answer. What's the question?
What should he wipe it?
What should he wipe it on? Right. What should he wipe it on? Anyways, he's going to go all the way back down, and wipe it off. What should he wipe it on? He can't wipe it off on the. If you don't hold that the leftovers are valid, so what should he wipe it on? He can't wipe it on the cow itself, because that'll be leftovers from your finger, and you can't do that. So Amar Abaye, bisfas Mizra, you're going to wipe it on the side of the bowl that you are taking it from. Kidiksiv, kiporizav, that we had a few times that the word kipore means to wipe off, and that's what they call the bowls, because they used to wipe off on the bowls, they used to wipe off on the side of the bowls with their fingers, the leftovers. So therefore, that's what they would do, and therefore it's not a question about the shirayim. Okay, so now we got into this, and we're going to go back to it now. What was it? Previous page. Where do we mention it? Okay, let's see. So we asked Umi Amar Rabbi Elazar Hachi. Rabbi Elazar told us that when it comes to blood, so you cannot accept the blood in two vessels. Where was that? Somewhere at the top. Yeah. So Rabbi Dovid says that that's not going to work. You cannot accept the blood in two vessels. So now we're going to ask. But we had previously that Rabbi Dovid said that you cannot sanctify with the blood if it's in two vessels. Oh yeah, we had it right here. So towards the top of the page we had this discussion. Okay, so on that we're asking. Yeah, on that we're asking, is that really true? Miyamar Blazer Hachi, did we really say that you can't accept the blood? The two vessels cannot accept one amount of blood and sanctify it. It has to be all in one vessel. So the Kohen Gadol used to bring the flour offering twice a day, in the morning and towards the evening. And what happened over there? Chavite Kohen Gadol Rabbi Yochanan Omer. Eina kedusha lechatzayin. Rabbi Yochanan says that he used to bring in a serious eifa, a tenth of an eifa. So that cannot be divided up. You can't put half of the tenth of the eifa into one vessel and the other half into another vessel. That's not going to work. You have to bring a full tenth of a vessel, a full tenth of a flour in one vessel. That's Rabbi Yochanan. But Rabbi Elazar holds Amar mitok shekarva lechatzayin kedusha lechatzayin. Sits at the end of the day, you're bringing part of this offering in the morning and part of it in the afternoon. So therefore, even when you bring it, you can bring it up in two vessels. You don't have to bring up the measurement of a flour in one vessel. It can be brought in two vessels. Next page, V'im Isa. Now, if it's true that blood you cannot sanctify in two vessels, so V'im Isa leilef midam. Why don't you learn from blood that just like blood cannot be sanctified in two vessels? So say over here also that the flour of the Kohen Gadol's offering also cannot be divided up into two vessels, and it has to be really all in one vessel. Maybe you'll say, what do you mean? One's blood, one's a flour offering, totally separate, and you can't learn one from another. So, guys, but we know that a mincha that you did kmitza in the heichal, inside in the more holy area of the temple, it's going to be valid. Why? Because we remove the bowls that are on the table on the shulchan with the showbread with the lechem apanim. We remove them from the heichal, and we learn that you can also remove a flour offering from there as well. So you're learning mincha from removing of the bowls with incense. Those are two separate categories. So says the Gemara, mi mincha yolif, but mincha midam lo yolif. So the says the Gemara, the removal. We consider the removal of the bowls like a kmitza. Why? Why do we consider like a kmitza?
One from the Lord, another it was a regular mincha from the lechem of panim, but he does not derive it of mincha from the blood of animal.
Because we consider that bringing up the incense from the bowls with the lechem upon him as a mincha offering. So that's still the same category as opposed to learning from accepting the blood, where that's categorically different. Okay. Now, do you really learn one flour offering from another flour offering? The Hatanyo, when it comes to the lechem apanim, it says achlo pirka. So until you every Shabbos they would switch it. So until you would take it apart, if before you would take apart the sounds like we'll see more about this, but coming up in a daf and half. But it sounds like they would take apart when they would remove the shobra. They would take apart the things that the bread is on. So and then they would put a new one in. So before you take apart the tray or whatever it is that the bread was on, if ad shalo parka, before you take it apart, nifras lachma, the bread would break, it would go into pieces. Then halachem pasel. Then the bread is going to be pasel. Yeah, and Rashi points out why, because just like kmitza has to come from a full flour offering, so too the bread has to be complete. It can't be lacking. However, the ein maktir lavas habezichin, then you cannot bring up, once that happens, the bread is invalid, you cannot bring up the bazichin, meaning the same way by kmitza, the scooping of the flour, right? And the bringing of the flour permits, the other parts of the offering to be brought on the altar, to be consumed. So to hear that the bread has to be whole, and if not, then you cannot bring the bazichin. The bringing of this incense is what allows the bread to be consumed. So it's like kmitza in that sense. So the ein makdir Allah v'esa bazichin. However, mishapirka, once you do take apart the table where the bread is on, and then nifras lachma, mishapirka nifras lachma lechem pasel u'makdir v'esa bazichin. However, then the bread's going to be invalid because now the bread's in pieces. If the bread breaks, it's in pieces. That's going to be invalid. However, you could bring up the bazichin. You could bring up these little bowls of incense. Now, the question is it really true? We're asking that we learn from one mincha to another mincha. In this case, where the bread is broken, you could still bring the bazichin, but by a case of a mincha offering, if you're lacking flour, then you can't do kmitza. So if you were to be learning from other mincha offerings, you should invalidate the bringing of the incense in these bowls that allows the lechem apanim to be consumed. You would forbid that if the lechem apanim was in pieces. And yet we see, even though the lechem apanim, this bread, was broken into pieces, you could still bring the bazichin, you could still bring the incense in the bowls. So you see that we don't learn one mincha from another mincha. So to that, Rabbi Gleizer says, "I'm Rabbi Gleizer, lo pirka mamish, ella kevan shehigia zmana lefarek." You don't actually have to, take apart the tray where the bread is on. It's just when that time arrives to do that, time to switch the breads, afal pishlo pirka kanisha pirka damya. Even though you did not take it apart, but it's like it was taken apart, and therefore, if beforehand the bread breaks, so then you cannot bring up the offering. But if afterwards the bread breaks, you could still bring up the offering. Yeah. So on that, the Gemara says, hold on, but why is that good? How can you bring up the incense if the bread is broken? It should be like a mincha, which is lacking before you do kmitza. So if you have a vessel full of flour and some of the flour is lacking, you can't do kmitza. So if some of the bread is broken, you shouldn't be able to do the incense. So halo kasha, that's not difficult because mincha lo barir breira kometz tida, the ha barir breira kometz tida. So by a mincha, what's the difference? By a mincha, by the bread, we're saying, since the bowls with the incense, they're owned in their individual bowls, so therefore, when the time comes to remove it, it's you can consider it like a kmitza's already been done, as opposed to a regular flour offering where you don't know which one you're going to take from. So if any of the flour is missing, it's going to be an invalid knitza. Since it's not clear, there's no brera, you don't know exactly which part you're going to take from, which flour you're going to take from. So there we say that if you're lacking flour, then the knitza is going to be invalid. Since the time came to switch the showbread and to disassemble what's holding it, so it's like it's already been disassembled. It's like it's already knitza has been taken off of it. I see if I can see. 1 second. 1 second. Right. Somehow by the bread, we say that once the time has come for the incense to be removed, so it's considered like it's already been removed, and therefore it's like knitza has already been done to it, so to speak. And if the bread breaks afterwards, it's not going to invalidate your ability to bring it up. So the question is, why do we say that? When it comes to regular mincha offering, we don't say that. If it's lacking, it's lacking. So that we just answered that by actual flour, you don't know where the knitza is going to be coming from. It's all mixed together with the rest of the flour. So you can't say they haven't determined where the knitza is coming from. So, but here in the case of lechem apanim, so here the kometz is determined even before knitza, meaning the levona, the spice is already in its own bowl before it's been removed from the table. It's already there. It's already been separated. So since it's already really been separated into its own bowl, you can consider it that when the time has come to remove it, it's like it's already been removed. Sounds like this point is not so clear. 1 second. 1 second. Yeah, one more thing. Yeah.
You don't actually know which flour is going to
be. I kept saying that the word achil pirga means that they disassembled it, but maybe I was mistaken. Sorry. No, before it was removed from the table. Yeah, no. Sorry, one second. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it means that they're disassembling the tray that the bread is on, or if it's more that they're removing the bread. Right? Can we just? It's just, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna look into this idea of lechem apanim, but it doesn't mean that it's disassembling the tray that it's on. Rather, it means that it's when you're removing the bread. So if before the bread was removed, it broke, that's going to be a problem. If after the bread removed, it broke into pieces, that's going to be fine. So, yeah. Fine. So, Elameata, according to this, one second. If you're comparing this whole idea to knitza, that removing of the bread, sounds like some whatever. The removing of the bread is like knitza, the removing of the flour. By the removing of the flour, if you're lacking, after you remove the flour before you put it up on the altar, you still can't put it up on the altar. And yet by the bread, once you've removed the bread from the table and now it breaks, you don't say that it's lacking. Why not? It should be like shirayim shechasr ben knitza la'akara, the ein makdirin chometz alein. So says the Gemara, that itself isn't that a debate? If you can bring up the flour offering, even if it became lacking between the kmitza and the offering up. Rabbi Lazar himself holds that that's okay, even if it's lacking between the kmitza and the offering up of the flour. You could still you still can bring the flour offering. Okay. Gufa chavite kohen gadol Rabbi Yochanan Amar Einam kedusha lechatzayin Rabbi Lazar Amar mitol shekar lechatzayin kedusha lechatzayin. We have the flour offering of the kohen gadol brought twice a day. The question is, when you bring its measurement, can you put it into two vessels, or only it has to be in one vessel? So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, what's Rabbi Yochanan's rationale that it has to be in one vessel? So Amar Kra Mincha, it says in the pasuk, Mincha Taman Machitzasa Baboker Machitzasa Ba'arev. It says a Mincha Machitzasa Hevi Mincha V'Achar Kach Chotzei. You have to first bring a mincha, first bring the requisite amount, and then you'll divide it up. You'll bring in the morning and you'll bring in the afternoon. But the measurement that you're bringing has to be a full measurement. Yeah, and then you can divide it up, half in the morning and half in the evening. But originally you have to bring it in one vessel. Okay, so now on that, Meisve, it says that they used to bring a full tenth of measurement, and then they divide it up, half in the morning, half in the evening. Vitanya, and the Brisa says on that, Ilu namar mincha machatzis haisi omer maybe chatzi yisaron mibeso shachris umakriv chatzi yisaron mibeso arvis umakriv. If it just said mincha machatzis to bring half of a mincha, I would say, okay, bring half from your house in the morning and half in the evening. Tamalomar machitzasa baboker. It says bring half of it. It says machitzasa baboker. Mechza mishalim who maybe that really you have to bring the full amount. You have to bring the full amount, not only half of it. So according to the opinion that says that if you bring it even in two vessels, it's going to be sanctified, the Gemara is expounding that no, you have to bring a full amount. To that he says, Rabbi Lazar says that it's going to be only lemitzvah, meaning the ideal state is you have to bring it in one full amount. But if you happen to bring it in two vessels, it's still going to be sanctified. Whenever the word chukah is mentioned, it means this is how it has to be done, and there's no exceptions. Here it says the word chukah, so you can't say it's only ideally for a mitzvah. It sounds like if you don't do it, it's going to be invalid. That's just coming to teach you that it has to come full from your house. It can't be lacking from your house. You have to bring the full amount from your house. But once you bring it, even when you bring it, it could be into vessels. You just can't leave, a length less than a tenth of flour at home. You got to bring the whole thing. But when you're bringing it, you can bring it into vessels. That's fine. Now, back to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that it's invalid. Rabbi Yochanan really said that putting into vessels is invalid. The ha'itmar, but it says, if you bring half of a isaron, which is not the right amount, and you have in mind to add, so Rav Amar Eino Kadosh. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kadosh. Rav says it's not good. You can't bring less than the right amount and have in mind to add more. You have to right now bring the right amount. And Rabbi Yochanan himself said that's fine. Now, so that's a question on Rabbi Yochanan. Now, the in Isa, that if it's true that by the Kohen Gadol's flour offering, it's not going to be good. So Leilef Mei Chavitin, Rabbi Yochanan should learn from the Kohen Gadol and say that it's not good. Why does having in mind going to help you? And this is talking about a regular flour offering. So if Rabbi Yochanan held that by the Kohen Gadol's offering, you could not bring it unless you have the full amount. So why buy a regular mincha offering, a flour offering? He said you could bring it as long as you have the right, intention. Maybe you'll tell me that Rabbi Yochanan is not going to learn from one mincha to another mincha. The chitem Rabbi Yochanan milsa lo yalif can't be, because v'hamer Rabbi Yochanan shlam shaktim beheichal ksherin deksiv b'shaktim patz ol moed shlo yehei tapal chamer miyikar. So Rabbi Yochanan himself said that a shlomim that's slaughtered in the heichal is going to be good, even though it's supposed to be slaughtered in the courtyard. Now, how do I know? The Siv Shakto Pesach, it should be slaughtered at the entrance of the Ohel Moed. But he says that we're going to learn courtyard from the Heichal, because Shelo Yehei Tafel Chamer Me'ikr. What do you want to tell me? The animal is going to be the holier the area is, it's going to invalidate the animal. If a shlamim could be slaughtered in the courtyard, it for sure could be slaughtered even in the holier area. So you could learn one thing from another. You can learn the area of a courtyard that it can't be more stringent than the heichal. So so you see that Rabbi Yochanan, he can learn Yolav heichal mi'azara. He learns out that you're allowed to slaughter in the heichal, which is a higher level of holiness, from the courtyard. So you could learn out one thing from another. Says the Gemara, you're right. Daito lahosiv shiny. Of course, Rabbi Yochanan holds that you have to have a full amount. However, when you have in mind that you're going to add, that's a whole different story. That changes things. If you just have in mind that you're going to bring it, if you bring it into two vessels, that's invalid. It has to be all in one vessel. If you bring less than the amount, but you have in mind you're going to add, so that's going to be okay. The Tanya, it says in the Brisa, Malayim, ein Malayim ela shleimim. It says that you have to bring complete offering. It has to be a complete amount of flour. And the Amar Rabbi Yossi, a Masai Bezmajin, that Losif, all Bezmajin Losif, Rishon Kadosh. As long as you have in mind you're going to add more, every little bit you put into the vessel of flour is gonna get sanctity. So we don't say it's not holy until you have the right amount. If you have in mind that you're going to be adding, so then every bit is going to have sanctity. But if you don't have that in mind, then you're going to need the requisite amount, and you cannot divide it up into two vessels. Okay. Now, Rav said that even when you have in mind to add, it doesn't matter. You got to bring the full amount right now, and that's it. So that was
Hello, we lost your audio.
Hello out there.
yeah. I don't know why. This is the third day in a row it's done this. It just turns off.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Okay. That's really just I don't know why that.
Put in
Okay.
another
So
quarter.
if Rav, like Rabbi Dovid, when it comes to the Kohen Gadol's flour offering, that it could be brought into two vessels, so then he should say the same thing over here. And maybe he'll say that Rav hasn't learned one thing from another, and therefore he can't learn a flour offering from the Kohen Gadol's offering. But that's not true. The Hamar Rav Mincha Kedusha B'lei Shemen U'Below Levona, that usually a flour offering has incense and oil. So Rav says though it's going to be holy without it. Shekein Matzina B'Lechem Aponim Below Levona. Shekein Matzina B'Minchas Nesachim Below Shemen. The Lechem Aponim we find by the bread there it'll be holy even without incense. There's no oil, and yet by the minchas nesachim there's no incense, and each one of those flour offerings is still good. So Rav learns from other flour offerings that this flour offering also. So Rav learns from other flour offerings. So here also he should learn from the Kohen Gadol's flour offering that it could be divided up into two. So shekein matzin b'lechem apanim below levona, shekein matzin b'minchas nesachim below shemen, u'below levona. 1 second. Yeah, Rav says a mincha is kedusha below shemen. Shekein matzinu b'lechem apanim. Good. Below levona without incense. Shekein matzinu b'minchas nesachim with the libation mincha offering. There's no incense. Below shemen u below levona without either oil or incense in a flour offering. Shekein matzinu b'minchas chota. That shekein matzinu by a sin offering. It's only it doesn't have any oil or any incense. So al korcha Rav ki Rabbi Yochanan clearly it must be Rav goes like Rabbi Yochanan that you cannot divide up the Kohen Gadol's flour offering into two. It has to be in one vessel, and that's why Rav holds in general you'll never be able to divide it up, even if you have in mind. Okay. Gufa Amar Rav mincha kedusha b'lei shemen. So in general, flour offering will be holy even without oil, even though it says to put in oil. Shekein matzina b'lechem apanim. By the lechem apanim, there's no oil. Below levona, you can have a flour offering with no incense. Shekein matzina b'minchas nesachim below shemen. The flour offering with the libation flour offering has no incense. Below shemen or below levona, you can have a flour offering without either oil or incense. Shekein matzina b'minchas chota. Shekein matzina b'minchas chota. A flour sin offering has neither oil or incense, and yet it is valid. So now, v'shemen levona kachi hay b'loy hay v'hay b'loy hay. So when you want to sanctify your flour offering with oil and incense, do you have to do it all together in one vessel, or can you sanctify them individually? Can the oil be sanctified without the incense without the oil? So says the Gemara, yeah, it could be. Why? Shekein matzinu b'luk shemen shal mitzora. You found that by mitzora all there is oil, and it's sanctified. Levona, incense can be sanctified without oil. Shekein matzinu b'levona habal b'bezichin. That the incense that you brought with these with the bowls by the showbread by lechem apanim, there's no oil. So you see that even by a regular mincha offering, you could sanctify the oil individually and the incense individually. Rabbi Chanina says, no, it has to be all together. It has to be all together. You can't do it individually. The oil and the incense has to be sanctified together with the flour. Now, Rabbi Chanina, we have a vessel which measures how much flour you need. So how is it going to sanctify? Sorry, I jumped. Yeah, Isar Leman Nimshach by the anointing oil. So how are you going to sanctify this if it has to be all together? It's only made. Right, yeah, I think it's only made to measure the flour. But yet, if you have to have them all together in one vessel, so how are you going to how's it going to sanctify it? So to that we say. So that we say it'll be used for the minchas chota. It'll be used to measure out the flour for the minchas chota, the sin offering, which doesn't have any oil or incense. And you have oil measuring things that measure out and sanctify the oil that we need, but it's not together with other things. There's no incense in there or flour. So what was that vessel used for? That's used for the mitzora, which only has oil. So these vessels that are used to only sanctify the flour, only sanctify the oil, you're right, according to Rabbi Chanina, are only used for things that only require flour or only require oil. Okay, the next is a long run to the next period. So, okay, sorry, I'm a little behind. We'll catch up. Don't worry. We'll stop here.
Yes, of course. Have a great day.